Right now, in your pocket or in your hand, there is almost certainly a quartz crystal. I know that sounds strange, so let me explain. Every smartphone, every computer, every digital clock, every GPS system, every ultrasound machine, and every piece of sonar equipment on Earth uses quartz crystal as its timekeeping mechanism. The crystal oscillates at a precise and consistent frequency when an electrical current passes through it. And that oscillation is so reliable, so exact, that the entire digital world is synchronized to it. Your phone is keeping time with a quartz crystal right now, as you listen to this podcast. The property that makes this possible is called the piezio effect. It is documented physics, it is peer-reviewed science, it is the foundational principle of modern electronics. And it means that the next time someone tells you crystals are just rocks with no measurable properties, you can tell them that the device they use to say that is powered by one. But that is only the beginning of this story, because human beings have been working with crystals and gemstones as tools for healing, protection, spiritual practice, and conscious living for at least 60,000 years. And the archaeological record, the geological science, the history of ancient civilizations, and a growing body of research in physics, neuroscience, and psychology are all converging on a picture of these remarkable objects that is far more complex, far more fascinating, and far more worthy of serious attention than most people in either the scientific or the spiritual community have been willing to hold together. Today, we are going to hold it together.
We're going beyond horizons, where the mind and spirit meet, where the body finds its balance and the soul feels complete. Every story, every journey, every healing step we take, we're living life with purpose, with every breath we make. Beyond horizons, we rise.
Welcome to Beyond Horizons. I am Sugita-Jackson, and this is the show where ancient wisdom and modern science stop competing and start confirming each other. Every week, we take a topic that deserves more depth than it typically receives, and we give it the full treatment. Today's topic sits at one of the most interesting fault lines in the holistic wellness and metaphysical community, because crystals are simultaneously one of the most beloved and most dismissed subjects in this space. The believers are passionate, the skeptics are loud, and the honest truth, as it almost always is considerably more interesting than either camp is fully acknowledging. Today, we're going to look at what the geological and physical sciences actually say about crystals and their measurable properties. We're going to travel through the extraordinary history of human relationship with stones across dozens of civilizations. We are going to look at the peer-reviewed research honestly, including the placebo research that skeptics love to cite and the much richer story that research actually tells. We are going to profile 10 specific stones with their geological formation, historical use, documented science, and holistic and spiritual application. We are going to talk about the very real problems of the crystal industry and how to protect yourself from them. And we are going to close with a practical framework for using crystals within a conscious, holistic wellness, spiritual, and metaphysical practice. Let's begin at the very beginning, which is about 4 billion years ago. Quick note before we dive in. Horizyns is a holistic wellness marketplace and community platform launching in 2026. If you are a seeker, a creator, or a practitioner in this space, this is being built just for you. Learn more or schedule a demo at www.horizynsinc.com. That's HORIZYNSINC.com. Link is in the show notes. What a crystal actually is, the geology of consciousness. Before we explore how humans have worked with crystals, let's understand what we're actually working with, because the geological reality of crystals is one of the most profound and least discussed aspects of this entire subject. A crystal is a solid material whose atoms are arranged in a highly ordered, repeating, three-dimensional pattern called a crystal lattice. This internal geometric order is what distinguishes a true crystal from amorphous rock. It is not a surface quality, it is a fundamental structural property that extends from the atomic level to the macroscopic form of the stone. This crystalline order forms under specific conditions of temperature, pressure, and chemical environment over geological timescales that are genuinely difficult to comprehend. A piece of clear quartz you might hold in your hand formed between 10,000 and 100 million years ago, depending on its specific origin. A piece of moldavite formed approximately 15 million years ago from the impact of a meteorite striking what is now the Czech Republic, the extreme heat of the impact fusing terrestrial silica and cosmic material into a glassy stone that literally came from the sky. A piece of black tourmaline crystallized deep in the Earth's crust under conditions of extreme heat and pressure that no human technology can replicate. When you hold a crystal, you are holding an object that has been forming since before your species existed, before the continents reached their current configuration, before the ancestors of every living being on this planet walked the Earth. That is not a metaphysical claim, that is a geological fact. And it changes the relationship with the stone before a single additional property is considered. The archaeological record, how long we have known. The relationship between human beings and crystals and gemstones is one of the oldest continuously documented relationships in the archaeological record. The oldest known ornamental use of crystals dates to approximately 60,000 years ago, when Neanderthals in what is now Spain decorated themselves with pierced marine shells and colored minerals, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of aesthetic and possibly spiritual value in natural objects. In ancient Sumer, the civilization that gave us writing and one of the earliest urban cultures, lapis lazuli was considered more valuable than gold. It was traded across thousands of miles, from its source in the mines of Afghanistan to the courts and temples of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians used specific stones in healing rituals, ground certain minerals into medicinal preparations, and recorded their properties in cuneiform texts. Ancient Egypt developed one of the most sophisticated crystal and gemstone traditions in the ancient world. The Book of the Dead, the collection of texts designed to guide the soul through the afterlife, specified which stones should accompany the deceased. Lapis lazuli was associated with the heavens and with Isis. Carnelian was associated with the blood of Isis and with protection. Turquoise was associated with the goddess Hathor and with joy, femininity, and renewal. Malachite was associated with transformation and the afterlife. The Egyptians did not use these stones decoratively. They used them with precise intentionality based on documented understanding of their properties. Ancient Chinese medicine incorporated specific stones and healing protocols that are now documented in texts, including the Compendium of Materia Medica compiled by Li Shizhen in the 16th century, but encoding knowledge that had accumulated over thousands of years. Jade holds a special place in Chinese civilization that goes beyond decoration or even healing. Jade was understood as the concentrated essence of heaven and earth, a bridge between the human and the divine. The Chinese have a saying that gold has a value, jade is invaluable. Ancient Hindu tradition, documented in texts, a Sanskrit text on gemstones, developed a sophisticated system of therapeutic gemstone use that attributed specific stones to the 9 celestial bodies of Vedic astrology. Ruby for the sun, pearl for the moon, red coral for Mars, emerald for Mercury, yellow sapphire for Jupiter, diamond for Venus, blue sapphire for Saturn, hessonite garnet for Rahu, and cat's eye for Ketu. The Navaratna system, 9 gems, represents one of the most complete and internally consistent therapeutic gemstone frameworks ever developed and is still practiced today. In ancient Greece and Rome, the understanding of gemstone properties was sufficiently developed that the Greeks named stones for their presumed effects. The amethyst derives its name from the Greek amethystos, meaning not intoxicated. Soldiers wore amethyst into battle, believing it would keep them sharp and clear-headed. Merchants and diplomats wore it for clarity of thought and honest speech. Whether the stone itself produced these effects or whether the intention of wearing it shaped the wearer's behavior, the result was a tool for conscious self-management that operated through a coherent symbolic and energetic framework. Native American traditions across hundreds of distinct nations developed specific relationships with specific stones. Turquoise is sacred to many southwestern nations, including the Navajo, Hopi, and Zuni, understood as a bridge between earth and sky, between the human world and the divine. Obsidian is used in ceremony across multiple traditions for its ability to reveal what is hidden and to cut through illusion. Apache tears, a form of volcanic obsidian, carry specific grief-healing associations in Apache tradition. The medieval European lapidary tradition, documented in texts including Hildegard van Bingen's Physica from the 12th century, recorded detailed therapeutic applications for dozens of stones within a sophisticated framework that integrated Neoplatonic philosophy, Christian theology, and centuries of accumulated empirical observation. Hildegard was not a folklorist. She was one of the most educated and systematically empirical minds of her era. 60,000 years of human beings across every continent and every civilization choosing to work with specific stones for specific purposes is not primitive superstition. It is the longest-running empirical study in the history of our species. The piezoelectric effect, where crystal science becomes undeniable. Let's go back to what I told you in the opening, because this is the most important scientific fact in the entire episode, and it deserves a full explanation. Piezoelectricity was formally documented by French physicists Pierre and Jacques Curie in 1880. The word comes from the Greek piezein, meaning to squeeze or press. The piezoelectric effect describes what happens when mechanical pressure is applied to certain crystalline materials, particularly quartz. When the crystal lattice is compressed or stressed, the internal geometric order of the atoms produces a net electrical charge. The crystal literally converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. The reverse is also true. When an electrical current is applied to a piezoelectric crystal, it physically deforms, it vibrates, and it does so at a frequency that is extraordinarily precise and consistent because the frequency is determined by the crystalline structure of the material itself, not by any external control mechanism. This is called the inverse piezoelectric effect. This property is so reliable, so precious, and so consistent that quartz crystal oscillators have become the standard timekeeping mechanism for virtually all modern digital technology. The quartz watch, the computer processor, the GPS satellite, the ultrasound transducer that visualizes organs and developing babies, the sonar systems that map the ocean floor, the radio transmitters that carry communication signals, all of them use the vibrational frequency of quartz crystal as their reference standard. According to the Frequency Control Division of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, approximately 2 billion quartz oscillators are manufactured every year. The entire infrastructure of modern digital civilization runs on the vibrational frequency of a crystal. Now, the person who tells you that crystals are inert objects with no measurable physical properties is telling you something that the entire electronics industry, the entire medical imaging industry, the entire navigation technology industry, and the entire communications industry have bet their existence against. And they are losing that bet every second of every day. Does the piezoelectric effect of a crystal sitting on your altar or held in your hand produce the same effects as a crystal oscillator in a precision instrument? The answer is no. The scales are different. The mechanisms of effect are different. The intentional context is different. But the underlying property that quartz crystal is a material with measurable, consistent, documentable electromagnetic behavior is not a metaphysical claim. It is documented physics. Pyroelectricity, another documented crystal property. Black tourmaline and certain other crystals exhibit a related but distinct property called pyroelectricity. When a pyroelectric crystal is heated or cooled, it generates an electrical charge across its surface. This property also produces a weak but real and measurable electromagnetic field around the crystal in response to the temperature changes. Tourmaline also exhibits piezoelectric effects. It is one of the only minerals known to exhibit both simultaneously. Research on tourmaline has documented the emission of far infrared radiation and negative ions in measurable quantities. Far infrared radiation is the wavelength used in infrared saunas, which have documented therapeutic effects on circulation, cellular regeneration, and the reduction of inflammation. Negative ion environments have been associated with improved mood and reduced anxiety in multiple peer-reviewed studies, which is why people consistently report feeling better near waterfalls, oceans, and after thunderstorms. The science of what tourmaline physically does is genuinely interesting and genuinely documented. Whether those effects are significant at the scale of a stone you are carrying in your pocket versus a clinical infrared device is a different question, but the underlying properties are real. Shungite, the stone with the most extraordinary chemistry. Shungite is a black mineraloid found primarily in the Karelia region of Russia, in deposits that are estimated to be approximately 2 billion years old. What makes shungite scientifically remarkable is its carbon structure. Unlike most carbon-based materials, shungite contains naturally occurring fullerenes, also called buckyballs, hollow cage-like carbon molecules that were considered a scientific curiosity when they were first synthesized in the laboratory and that earned their discoverers the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996. The presence of natural fullerenes in shungite is extraordinary because fullerenes have documented antioxidant, antimicrobial, and cytoprotective properties in peer-reviewed research. A study published in the journal Small documented that fullerene derivatives show powerful antioxidant activity. Research published in the European Journal of Medicinal Chemistry documented antimicrobial properties. The Russian government has investigated shungite water filtered through shungite for its purification properties. Some Russian healing spas have used shungite pools for centuries. The claims made about shungite in the crystal community, particularly around electromagnetic field protection, go considerably beyond what the peer-reviewed evidence currently supports. The general antioxidant and antimicrobial effects of its fullerene content are documented. The specific claims about EMF blocking require more rigorous research before they can be stated with a scientific confidence. As always with this subject, the distinction between what is known and what is claimed matters enormously. Now let's talk about the study that crystal skeptics love to cite, because it deserves a full and honest treatment rather than either the dismissal the skeptics offer or the avoidance that some crystal advocates prefer. In 2001, psychologist Christopher French and colleagues at Goldsmiths University conducted a study in which participants were given either genuine crystals or fake plastic crystals, and they asked to meditate with them for 15 minutes. Both groups reported similar experiences of tingling sensations, warmth, and sense of enhanced well-being. The researchers concluded that the effects of crystals are likely attributable to the power of suggestion rather than to any intrinsic property of the stones. This is frequently cited as definitive evidence that crystals do not work. But this interpretation misunderstands what placebo research actually tells us, and the misunderstanding matters enormously. The placebo effect is not a fake effect. It is a real, measurable, neurologically genuine phenomenon in which the brain, in response to an expectation of treatment, releases actual endorphins, actual dopamine, actual serotonin, and other neurochemicals that produce real physiological changes. Research by neuroscientist Tor Wager at Columbia University, published in Science, documented that placebo pain relief involves genuine activation of the brain's own opioid system. The pain relief is real. The neurochemical release is real. The reduction in measured pain response is real. The mechanism is internal rather than external. What this means for crystal practice is both honest and genuinely empowering. If holding a stone that carries personal meaning and intentional focus produces genuine neurochemical changes through the expectation, ritual, and attention that working with it cultivates, those neurochemical changes are real. The endorphins are real. The dopamine is real. The felt sense of calm, clarity, protection, or love that the practice generates is neurologically genuine. A practice that reliably activates your own healing neurochemistry through attention, intention, and ritual engagement is not nothing. It is applied neuroscience. The locus of the effect may be internal rather than emanating from the stone, but the effect itself is real, and the ancient practitioners who developed these systems may have understood this intuitively even without the language of neurochemistry to describe it. Every living organism generates and responds to electromagnetic fields. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, measurable several feet outside the skin, as documented by research from the HeartMath Institute. The brain generates measurable electromagnetic oscillations we call brain waves. The cells of the body communicate through electromagnetic signaling at the cellular level. Research in the field of bioelectromagnetics, documented in journals including Bioelectromagnetics and the Journal of Electromagnetic Analysis and Applications, consistently shows that living systems are sensitive to electromagnetic fields at surprisingly low intensities. The question of whether the weak electromagnetic fields generated by piezoelectric and pyroelectric crystals interact measurably with the body's own electromagnetic field is a genuine scientific question. The research needed to answer it definitively has not yet been conducted at the scale and rigor required for firm conclusions. What we can say honestly is this: crystals have documented electromagnetic properties. The human body generates and responds to electromagnetic fields. Whether the overlap of these two realities produces the specific effects that crystal practitioners report is a question that deserves rigorous scientific investigation rather than dismissal. Every crystal's color is a physical property determined by its specific chemical composition and crystal structure. And color, as we know from the extensive peer-reviewed research in chromotherapy and environmental psychology, produces measurable neurological and physiological effects. The blue and violet stones, including amethyst, lapis lazuli, and blue lace agate, correspond to the wavelengths of light that research shows lower heart rate, reduce blood pressure, and promote calm, focused states. Amethyst's deep purple color is produced by iron oxide inclusions within the quartz crystal structure and is activated by natural radiation in the earth where it forms. The ancient association of amethyst with mental clarity and protection from excess is color therapy aligned with documented neuroscience. The green stones, including malachite, aventurine, and jade, correspond to the wavelength of light that research consistently identifies as the most restorative in the human visual system. Green is the color the eye processes most easily, and the color most consistently associated with safety, abundance, and restoration across human evolutionary history. The traditional association of green stones with the heart, with healing, and with prosperity reflects a chromotherapy principle that modern research confirms. The red and orange stones, including carnelian, garnet, and red jasper, correspond to wavelengths associated with increased alertness, energy activation, and the stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. The ancient warrior traditions that used these stones for courage and vitality were working with color psychology that modern research supports. This does not explain everything claimed about crystals, but it provides a genuine research-grounded mechanistic pathway through which the colors of specific stones can produce specific psychological and physiological effects in the people who work with them. Now, let's make this practical. Here are 10 stones worth knowing. For each one, I am going to give you what it is, what the tradition says, and how to use it. Clear quartz crystal. This is the master stone. It is the same crystal your phone uses to keep time through the piezoelectric effect. Traditionally called the master healer across dozens of cultures, use it to amplify intention, focus meditation, or pair with any other stone to strengthen its effect. Amethyst. A variety of quartz colored by iron and natural irradiation in the earth. The Greeks named it from their word meaning not intoxicated, and wore it for mental clarity. The violet frequency is associated with reduced anxiety and contemplative states. Use it for sleep, shadow work, and honest self-reflection. Black tourmaline. One of the only minerals that is both piezoelectric and pyroelectric simultaneously. It also produces measurable negative ions. traditionally used across cultures for protection and grounding. Place it at the entry points of your home or hold it during emotionally demanding situations. Rose quartz, one of my favorites. A pink variety of quartz whose color psychology research associates with reduced aggression, emotional softening, and the promotion of nurturing states. Traditionally connected to love and the heart across Egyptian, Greek, and Roman traditions. Use it during grief work, self-compassion practices, and heart-centered meditation. Obsidian, volcanic glass, not technically a crystal, but too important to leave out. Research has confirmed obsidian blades are sharper than surgical steel and produce less tissue damage. The Aztec used it as a surgical instrument and a scrying mirror. Use it during shadow work and truth-telling practices. Approach it with care during acute emotional crisis. Malachite, deep green copper carbonate with documented antimicrobial properties because of its high copper content. Associated in Egyptian tradition with transformation and the goddess Hathor. Use it during major life transitions and grief processing. Important safety note though, always use polished malachite and never use it in water preparations. Selenite, a crystalline form of gypsum that forms through the evaporation of ancient seabeds. Named after Selene, the Greek moon goddess, its soft molecular structure means it does not hold accumulated charge. Use it to cleanse other stones, clear your meditation space, and support mental clarity. Lapis lazuli, a metamorphic rock formed 400 million years ago, more valuable than gold in ancient Sumer, inlaid in the death mask of Tutankhamun. The deep blue wavelength is associated with calm, trust, and honest communication. Use it during divination work, journaling, and any practice requiring honest self-expression. Moldavite formed 15.1 million years ago from a meteorite impact in what is now Germany. Its extraterrestrial origin is a geochemically documented fact, not a metaphysical claim, associated with rapid and intense transformation. Not recommended for beginners. Always ground with black tourmaline when working with it, and purchase only from certified dealers because counterfeiting is extremely widespread. Carnelian, a microcrystalline variety of quartz whose orange and red spectrum activates energy, motivation, and life force. One of the oldest documented ornamental stones in human history. Mohammed wore a carnelian seal ring. Used in Ayurvedic practice as a warming and activating stone. Carry it during creative blocks, low energy periods, and practices focus on building vitality. That is your quick reference guide to 10 powerful stones to start with and worth keeping in your practice. Each one carries a genuine history. Each one has something very specific to offer. Work with them honestly and with intention. The intention is what makes all the difference. The crystal and gemstone market is worth over $1.5 billion globally and growing rapidly. And it has serious documented problems that every conscious consumer needs to be aware of. Counterfeiting is rampant. Moldavite is one of the most counterfeited stones on the market because genuine moldavite is very rare and expensive. Glass imitations are common and often sold with fraudulent certification. Synthetic amethyst, lab-created quartz, and dyed howlite sold as turquoise are other frequently encountered deceptions. The rule of thumb for any stone that is unusually inexpensive relative to its market value is to treat the price as a red flag rather than a bargain. The mining supply chain has documented human rights and environmental concerns. Certain crystal mines in Madagascar, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Myanmar have documented histories of child labor and unsafe working conditions. The environmental impact of large-scale crystal mining can be significant. Research your sources thoroughly. Ethical sourcing is both possible and worth the effort. Small-scale artisan miners, fair trade certified sources, dealers who can document the specific mine of origin for their stones. These exist and they are worth finding. The conscious consumer in the crystal space has both the opportunity and the responsibility to vote with their purchasing choices for the practices they want to see in this industry. And finally, any product claiming that a crystal will cure a disease, diagnose a medical condition, or replace medical treatment is making a claim that has absolutely no peer-reviewed evidence behind it and that may be harmful to people who need genuine medical care. Crystals are tools for holistic wellness, spiritual practice, and conscious living. They are not medicine in the pharmaceutical sense. Treating them as such is both scientifically inaccurate and potentially harmful. Work with crystals because they are extraordinary objects from the Earth's own body, because the tradition of human relationship with them is one of the oldest and richest in our history, and because the intentional ritual engagement with meaningful objects produces genuine neurochemical effects in the people who use them. That is enough. That is significant. That is real. This episode is brought to you by Unhack Your Brain. They are doing on Substack what we are doing on this podcast, taking the intersection of science and ancient wisdom seriously, and asking the question that I think is one of the most important questions of our time. What is the modern world actually doing to us? Not in the abstract, specifically, neurologically, physiologically. The hustle culture we discussed, the toxic social media loops, the sleep disruption from blue light screens, the division and polarization that is shaping how we think and what we are capable of feeling. These are not just cultural problems, they are brain problems, and Unhack Your Brain approaches them exactly that way. The writer, Matt Kellen, draws on anthropology, neuroscience, NLP, breathwork, meditation, and ancient practical traditions to understand what is going wrong and what we can actually do about it. The same framework that we use here. The science that explains why the old wisdom works. It is a free Substack, twice weekly posts, and no paywall. Just genuinely useful writing from someone who takes your brain and your well-being seriously. Find the link to Unhack Your Brain in the show notes. Subscribe for free. Today, we began 4 billion years ago with the geological formation of crystals, objects of such extraordinary age and formation complexity that understanding what they actually are transforms how you hold them. We trace 60,000 years of human relationship with stones across Sumer, Egypt, China, India, Greece, Rome, and indigenous traditions on every continent, discovering not a primitive fascination, but a sophisticated, cross-cultural, continuously refined tradition of empirical engagement with the properties of the Earth's own minerals. We looked at the science honestly and fully. The piezoelectric effect of quartz is documented, peer-reviewed physics that powers the entire digital world. The pyroelectric and negative ion properties of tourmaline are documented. The fullerene chemistry of shungite is genuinely extraordinary. The placebo effect is real, neurochemically genuine, and when properly understood is an empowering rather than deflating framework for understanding how crystal practice produces real effects in real bodies. We profiled 10 specific stones with their geological formation, historical use, documented scientific properties, and specific holistic spiritual and metaphysical applications. We gave you a practical framework for cleansing, charging, and working with stones in shadow work, meditation, divination, body work, sacred space, and grief healing. And we had the honest conversation about the crystal market that the industry needs more people having. Here is what I want you to carry from today's episode. You do not have to choose between genuine scientific honesty and genuine spiritual depth. The two are not in opposition. The most honest position available on crystals is also the most interesting one. They are extraordinary objects. Their properties are real. The human tradition of working with them is ancient and sophisticated, and the intentional, ritual, meaning-filled engagement with them produces genuine effects in the people who practice with integrity. That is not a compromised position. This is the truth, and the truth, as it always is in this space, is more remarkable than either the dismissal or the overclaim. If this episode gave you something to think about, please follow the Beyond Horizons podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss a future conversation. And come join our Horizyns community at www.horizyns.com. That's HORIZYNSINC.com, where you can meet like-minded individuals, find amazing products, and take workshops from our many curated vendors. Each week, we explore new ideas, traditions, and perspectives that help us live more balanced and meaningful lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the kind of work that takes courage. And until next time, keep exploring what lies beyond the horizon.
We're going beyond her